On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, Tesla holds what is perhaps their most important earnings call ever. I've got clips of all the best quotes from Elon Musk and the Tesla executive team, plus lots of analysis, as well as news of an interior refresh for Model S and X, and much more. Welcome, friends. It's episode 157 of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast for August 5th, 2018. Although I have to tell you, I am recording on August 2nd, and the reason for that is I am going to be out of town doing a little baseball trip with my uncles to Wrigley Field. I've got a few uncles in the family who are huge baseball fans like I am, and we've been talking for years about, wouldn't it be cool to go to a different ballpark every year? And so this is the year we'd finally planned it, and we're finally doing it. So we're going to be visiting Wrigley Field in Chicago. What better place to start? I mean, you got to either Wrigley or Fenway, right? You got to start with one of those. So I'll be there and wanted to make sure I got the show done and out to you on time, of course. So recording a little bit early. My apologies, as always, when I do need to do this, if I happen to miss anything on Friday. But something tells me the news for this week is all set. It was a huge news week. I have a big show for you, and it's not just the earnings call, although that's certainly the highlight. Before I get started, a couple of things. I wanted to note the bonus episode that I did that covered my full delivery day experience and my initial impressions of my Model 3. I want to thank everybody for the extreme kind words of love, support, congratulations. It really means a lot to me. Your emails, tweets, calls. I mean, I'm not going to play those calls because that's that'd be a little self-serving. But those of you that did call in with that know that I listened to them all, and I thank you sincerely. I mean, it was a heck of a couple of days, and I do miss the car very much already. But I'm glad it's getting its paint protected. And, hey, at least I dropped it off before I had the chance to really get used to the car, because then it would have really hurt to part with it, and it would have really hurt to have to get back into my wife's Mini Cooper. I mean, I'm grateful that we have another car, believe me, to drive while the Tesla's getting the paint protection. But so I'll be onto the earnings call in a bit, but first there is some news. And note, just another quick show note, as usual with earnings call episodes, these are such big episodes, I'm not going to do the Ride the Lightning hotline this week, but I am logging all of your calls. I've been listening to them. I've been taking notes for you guys, and I will save them for next week. So your calls did not go into a void from which they shall never return. They will get used next week. Please keep them coming. There's two ways you can call into the podcast. I'm sure you're going to have reactions to the earnings call, to the first big story that I'm going to do for you in a second about the interior refresh. So you can call in either by recording something on your smartphone. Please try to keep it to about a minute and a half. That would be super helpful. And you can just email that file to me after you record it. The email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or you can call in and leave a message on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free number, very easy. Just call in, leave the message, and you are done. That number is 1-888-989-8752. And one final note before I get rolling is that if you did listen to the bonus episode, I played the audio clip for you of the little video, the goofy little video of a 0 to 60 launch that I did in the car. Right, it was the second launch I ever did, and it was right after supercharging. So the battery got up to about 80%, whereas it was delivered with 50% of a charge. So I've uploaded that video to YouTube. So if you go find me on YouTube, the Ride the Lightning channel, not my Ryan McCaffrey. That's an IGN one. But if you look up, I guess if you just search for Ride the Lightning Tesla podcast, you should find the channel very easily. So if you want to see that video, it's there for you. All right, let's move on because there is so much to get to. First up this week, a huge tip of the cap to Electrek with probably their biggest. They get a lot of scoops, but this is probably the biggest one in my opinion, in quite some time, an interior refresh planned for the Model S and the Model X, but not anytime soon. So listen to this. Electrek saying Tesla is actually not planning to start production on the new design until another full year, Q3 2019, according to sources familiar with the matter. According to documents reviewed by Electrek, Tesla plans for the interior design refresh to extend the life cycle of the current Model S and Model X programs until 2021. So that appears to be the target date for a full redesign. Tesla wants Model S and Model X to remain its flagship vehicles during that time. In order to achieve that, the automaker's strategy is to, quote, harmonize the interior with a similar look as the new interior introduced with the Model 3, but with some more premium materials and features. The company expects that this harmonization will result in cost reduction and increase its gross margin on the Model S and Model X, end quote. Well, this was inevitable, certainly. We've been talking about it for a while. You recall I did a prediction show that suggested I had thought it would happen. It would be introduced at some point later this year. Turns out I was a year off on that. But it just makes a ton of sense to unify the UI design language. You know, it's going to make it a lot easier once this goes into effect for Tesla to streamline their software updates when all three cars are on that same core landscape-oriented design for their interface. And what I guess I can tell you now, and to be very clear, I'm not trying to say I knew this first or anything like that, but I only want to augment Electrek's report here. If you remember back to late March, you may recall that I told you I'd heard about a big thing, that I'd heard about a big rumor. But I didn't say what it was, mostly to protect my source at that point. And I didn't, and it turns out I would have ended up looking a bit silly had I gone ahead and passed that along to you, because it didn't come to pass. The time frame I was given came and went and nothing happened. And then another week went by and another week went by and it didn't happen. Well, I can tell you now that it was this. I had heard about this as well from a Tesla source. And so per my source, this was seemingly supposed to happen a lot sooner. My guess on that, and I am, to be clear, I am now just speculating. My guess is that because this was supposed to happen in late March but didn't, that's right about the time when Elon and Tesla went into, I think it's maybe fair to say, kind of a little bit of a panic about Model 3 production, and they shifted every single resource they had in the company to focus on that. So I suspect that this interior redesign project for S and X got shelved in favor of putting all hands on deck for Model 3, and now that Tesla is finally making their way through that, out of production hell, they've gone back to work on this. But given the timing that Electrek is quoting here from their sources, Q3 2019, another year away, my suspicion is that Tesla probably scrapped whatever they had 4 months ago that I had heard about, and they've probably gone back to the drawing board and are maybe more or less starting over, or at least investing a lot more time and energy into that interior redesign project. But regardless, this is going to be super cool. Tip of the cap, kudos to Electrek on this report. And, you know, as to what this could entail, you know, higher end luxury features, but with the Model 3 orientation, I had predicted, and from the renders, it appears that my prediction was correct, at least in that it'll be a 17-inch landscape-oriented screen, which, the Model 3 has the 15. But I wonder if, I almost hate to bring this back up again, but I wonder if we maybe could possibly see a heads-up display on this. But I suspect stuff like massaging seats could be an option, like just a higher-end luxury feature. Maybe an insanely advanced sound system. Maybe even something like, if you've seen the pictures of the back seat of the Lucid Air prototype, which was, a very impressive luxury EV that has sadly, yet to be produced, but they had back seats, these premium like bucket back seats, just two of them rather than three, that almost fully reclined. So I wonder if we could see something like that, perhaps, but just think more, the 3 is Spartan by design, by intention. It's still the materials feel very premium. It's a very nice interior, but you just got to think to yourself, okay, well, how could you class that up? How could you augment that for a version of that interior in the S and X? But that is going to be interesting to watch. So there you go. The big scoop coming via Electrek this week. Fun stuff with the interior redesign on S and X. Speaking of fun stuff, Jay, who is a listener of this podcast, got a very interesting reply from Elon Musk on Twitter this week about, of all things, a kit like, Knight Rider, kit like talking computer for Teslas. Jay asked Elon, will we get a kit like AI in Tesla cars anytime soon? I'd love a little computer dude that I could talk to in my performance Model 3. Elon replied to this and said simply, yes. So no details here, obviously, so I'm not sure exactly what Elon is thinking. But I tell you, I sure like what Jay is thinking. Jay, I'm with you on this, my friend. I grew up, I'm a kid, I'm an 80s kid. I love Knight Rider. I'd love to be able to talk to my car and have it talk back a little bit. That'd be awesome. We've heard Elon talk about how the future of Tesla vehicles includes a lot of voice commands, that they're building everything out towards that. That sort of helps complement the interior design that has almost no buttons or knobs. So, eventually, seemingly almost everything will be able to be done via voice commands, whether it's the windshield wipers, mirror adjustments, etc. So this sounds like what it could be the next level of that. Maybe a Siri-like AI that could chat back with you a little bit. And I'll say this, and I'm being serious. If Elon can spin this up soon, I just want to point out that William Daniels, the voice of Kit in Knight Rider, is still very much alive, 92 years old. I looked this up. So, Elon, let's get William Daniels to voice this, just because why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we do that? That'd be great. So, awesome stuff there. But Elon having some fun on Twitter this week because, he was replying to some really just interesting stuff, just fun ideas. Fun seemed to be the theme of this week, which is great. Another fun note from Elon on Twitter, video games. This has been a topic that came up before, where Elon talked about wanting to bring what kind of games would you like to see on the center touchscreens of the cars? I did a segment on that. You guys replied. We heard some cool ideas from a lot of you. Well, Elon has actually made a deal with Atari. And he says, quote, some of the best classic Atari games are coming as Easter eggs in Tesla version 9.0 release in about 4 weeks. Thanks, Atari. And then he followed up saying that Tempest, Missile Command, and Pole Position will be in this initial release. With that latter game, by the way, using the car's actual steering wheel. Now, I know, I don't recall the name of who it was, but someone had called in suggesting exactly that on this podcast. So Elon and the team either hearing you or thinking right along with you. Which this naturally, this is the ultimate merging of my two worlds, my Tesla world and my video game world. So obviously I thought a lot about this. So I went back and looked and I thought, well, what are some other examples of classic Atari games that could be great on the touchscreen of any Tesla? Because you got to remember, we have to factor in portrait and landscape orientations for these cars. So Pong could be great on any of them. Just, touch, you could do 2-player and just, use your finger to drag your paddle up and down to hit the ball. You could do Pac-Man, except Bandai Namco owns that now, so I don't think we're going to see that. Atari does not have rights to it. Pitfall, of course, Pitfall's classic. That could totally work. And I thought maybe Frogger. Frogger could be a good one. It's a game about cars, in a sense. A frog trying to cross a road, a busy traffic road. Although I believe Konami owns that one. They originally developed it, so I don't think that would quite fall under the legal jurisdiction that Elon seems to have attained here from Atari. But Elon did also add on. He replied further in a thread saying, if you're into video game development, consider applying at Tesla. We want to make super fun games that integrate the center touchscreen, phone, and car in real life. And then he added, please send examples of prior work when applying. Looking for maximum playability, and creativity. So Tesla's seemingly wanting to develop its own games for the car as well, which I think is amazing. And I have to imagine I've got a number of game developers out there, aspiring game developers, software developers, who might actually want to take Elon up on his offer. So take a look at the Tesla careers page. I didn't see if there are any job listings for this right now. I'm actually going to take a quick look and just see if there's anything in here. Because that's the thing. I don't know how you would apply if he hasn't posted. Let's see. I guess it would be under, engineering maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll have to look later and report back next week. But there you go. And a follow-up, actually, one more note to this thread. Friend of the show from Model 3 Owners Club, Trevor Page, saying, hey, Elon, any chance we can get a leaderboard for the games? Any update on the Supercharger trophy suggestion from a while back, which it had been suggested that you get a trophy for visiting various Superchargers and could eventually, if you're familiar with the PlayStation ecosystem, maybe get a platinum trophy for visiting all of them in maybe one state or one region or your entire country, depending on what country you're living in, who knows. But Elon replied back to Trevor saying, good idea, and thanks for the Supercharger trophy reminder. Really want to make the car as fun as possible. Well, that's all awesome. I love it. I can't wait to see what Tesla cooks up. And I'll tell you, I'm curious to see what else we're going to get in 9.0, which Elon noted would be in about 4 weeks, which puts us at the end of August, beginning of September. Now, Elon has most famously said that the first self-driving features would start to show up in 9.0, but remember, it might not necessarily be 9.0. It could just be that, it could be the 9, it could be 9.1, 9.4, etc. But temper your expectations a little. We are going to hear a little bit more about this in the earnings call coming up in just a few minutes here on the show. Next up, look for a proper camper mode coming soon to Teslas. Elon saying, we're adding a party and camper mode soon to S3 and X, so your car can maintain airflow, temperature, selective lights, music, and power devices for 48 hours or more while parked. Big batteries rock. Well, hey, there ain't no party like a Tesla party, right? But seriously, it's a logical, fun thing to do. Why not put those huge batteries to use, as Elon says? I'm glad to hear that this is on their software feature roadmap. I remember back, I know I've mentioned this before, I still need to try and get this up on YouTube. And that's, I told you semi-recently, I think, that I was at the Model S beta event where they did it was basically sort of an open house for the Tesla factory, which they had just acquired and been building out. And they had the first test rides for the Model S. And I was there and I filmed that. I filmed Elon's presentation with a Model S on stage there. We were all just kind of actually gathered. It wasn't even a stage. We were all just gathered around him and the car. And at one point in there, he said, this quote reminded me about this party and camper mode. It reminded me that he said at that event this car battery could power your laptop for a year. And I think that's exactly the kind of thinking that that's being implemented here, where it's this giant battery. It can do all kinds of cool stuff. Why not let people, have a camper mode, have a party mode? So that is super cool. Speaking of camping, by the way, Electrek snagging photos via Jeffrey Jessup of Nevada, passing along credit where credit's due on that, of a P3D towing stuff. Now, the Model 3 is not officially able to tow things. There's no tow hitch. There's no support for that. Now, according to multiple eyewitness reports per Electrek, this car does have manufacturer plates. So this is Tesla testing something. The Model 3, of course, is not the only Tesla to not officially support towing. In fact, the X is the only car. The Roadster certainly doesn't. The 3 does not, and the S doesn't either. Only the X formally supports it. So is it possible that a towing variant or a towing mode is going to be added to perhaps the all-wheel drive variants of Model 3? I say perhaps, but I don't really believe myself when I say that, simply because if the S doesn't do it, there's just seemingly no way that the Model 3 is also going to get that before the Model S does. They'd have to add it to both cars, I would think. Now, one Reddit commenter, who I want to credit here, made what I think could be I think is a very, very smart observation. So the user is MRMPLS, whatever, I'm not quite sure what that stands for, but that user says, speculation. This is actually a test for the Model Y. If the Y has similar weight, battery, and chassis, then performing towing tests with the Model 3 could help inform the Model Y's design decisions. For example, could it use the same brakes as Model 3, etc.? And that is, I think, a very wise bit of speculation on that poster's part. That is a distinct possibility. Remember, too, that this was sited in Nevada, and where the drivetrains built for Model 3 and seemingly Model Y, if they're going to use the same drivetrain, the Gigafactory in Nevada, not in Fremont. So they may very well be doing some testing for Model Y applications. Stay tuned on this one. Next up this week, a whole bunch of you sent me emails, tweets, like gave me the heads up on this, which I appreciate. And this was this really good news for me and for a lot of you as well. My car got better again in a really great way this week, and I'm not even talking about a software update. Model 3 performance versions now get free unlimited lifetime supercharging if you use a referral code. And anybody has a referral code, so if somebody, you can refer, you can still refer S and X, but now you can also get a referral credit for referring somebody that buys a performance Model 3. And yes, this is being retroactively applied to those of us who've either already ordered or taken delivery. It's for orders on or before August 1st. And to clarify, because I saw some confusion about this on Twitter, an order means you've put down what amounts to $3,500. You had your $1,000 reservation, and then your $2,500 non-refundable confirmation deposit. So that is an order. The $1,000 reservation is not an order. It's just a reservation. It's that $2,500 that makes it an order. But again, so I get it retroactively because I'd already taken delivery of the car. There's no way to go back and do a code. But from now on, August 1st, which was earlier this week, from now on, you will need to use a code. So if you are interested in ordering a performance Model 3, please feel free to use mine. I'll give you mine. Now, I finally have one after 3 years of doing this podcast. My code is Ryan73014. So if you're buying an SX or performance Model 3, you can use that to get free unlimited lifetime supercharging on an S, on your SX or performance Model 3. Tesla noting here, and this is, by the way, this is an extension of the current referral program. I had been under the impression I'd heard that the referral program was ending forever as of the end of July. It did not, and it has gotten a 6-week extension. So here's the note on that. Tesla saying, quote, after September 16th, 2018, full unlimited supercharging will go away, and owners will be able to give friends 1 year of unlimited supercharging. So the perk will decrease. So you've got, in the next 6 weeks, basically, if you're thinking about an SX or Performance Model 3, it looks like you've got about 6 weeks left to use a code and get the unlimited lifetime supercharging, after which you can still get get a perk, but it'll just be 1 year of the unlimited supercharging. So there you go. I have to say, I continue to be astounded. And I mean that, I'm not, no hyperbole there, astounded at how this company has been so awesome. I know I said this before. I want to say it one more time, though, now that another thing has been added on this pile. Since I ordered my Model 3 on May 20th, and I took delivery exactly 10 weeks later, the following things have happened since I placed an order for the car. And when I ordered it, it was a certain price with a certain features. But since I've ordered it, the car has gotten bigger and better brakes, red brake calipers, aluminum pedals. It got $6,500 cheaper, and now I'm getting free unlimited lifetime supercharging. That's just, I mean, that is simply amazing, and I cannot express enough joy and gratitude to the Tesla team for doing this. No, I challenge anyone to make a serious case for any other automaker doing this. I mean, I don't want to make it about I'm not trying to say Tesla's better than everybody else, but just like I don't, there's not another car company that I feel like would volunteer half of that stuff, let alone all of that. That is just amazing. And this experience with this car, again, I said it before, even before I got it, was incredible. And now as I have it and moving on, I mean, this is just astounding. I was already planning on driving the car, on driving Miss Daisy over here. Sorry, you knew I was going to use that eventually. I was planning on putting Daisy in the Model 3 and driving down to Arizona over the holidays this winter, I should say, to spend the holidays with my parents and family in Arizona. And that was going to be a trip that was going to be cheaper than gas. Well, now that trip has become free. I mean, and every other trip I'm going to take is free. So I'm just flabbergasted at it. I'm practically speechless, although I guess you guys know me, I'm never speechless. So, man, great stuff there. And if you're, who knows? I mean, I think the idea of this is if you were thinking, do I want all-wheel drive? Do I want to go performance? Maybe this helps tip you towards performance. That's what Tesla's hoping anyway. So I've got my referral code there if you choose to use it and get yourself some unlimited lifetime supercharging. One last thing before I move on to the earnings stuff. Tesla, this is a totally serious story, by the way. Tesla made a surfboard. Yes, an actual surfboard. This is not a joke. It was $1,500 and it was limited to 200. Those are sold out. Go figure, it's already done. It was very nice. It was like sort of a silver top finish, the T logo, black on the bottom. Looked really nice, but just I don't even have anything to say about it. I just wanted to mention it because it's weird. You can use that as to stump your friends in Tesla trivia. Like name a non-automotive item that Tesla made that what is surfboard? Yes, you got it because you listen to the show. But yeah, there you go, a surfboard. Tesla continues in one way or another. They manage to surprise us on almost a weekly basis. So there you go. All right, let's talk about the earnings call. Let's start with the investor letter. The letter goes over a lot of good stuff. Let me start with the challenges and successes of Q2. Here's Tesla. Quote, "It's fair to say that no production ramp of any other product has been as closely watched and debated as that of Model 3. We are proud of our team for producing roughly 7,000 Model 3, Model S, and Model X vehicles during the last week of June. We also want to thank all of our reservation holders who have waited patiently and who have been supportive of our mission. While we faced multiple obstacles during this ramp, our team worked hard to find solutions, and in the end, it was all worth it. A total vehicle output of 7,000 vehicles per week, or 350,000 vehicles per year, should enable Tesla to become sustainably profitable for the first time in our history, and we expect to grow our production rate further in Q3. In July 2018, Model 3 not only had the #1 market share position in its segment in the US, it outsold all other mid-sized premium sedans combined, accounting for 52% of the segment overall. The popularity of Model 3 is a true testament to the product. Based on trade-ins that we've received so far, we can see that the total addressable market for Model 3 is much larger than mid-sized premium sedans. More on that in a little bit. We are drawing customers from many other segments, including non-premium sedans and hatchbacks. And here are the production and delivery numbers, which are always interesting every month. We produced 53,339 vehicles in Q2 and delivered 22,319 Model S and Model X vehicles and 18,449 Model 3 vehicles, totaling 40,768 deliveries. So, yeah, they sat on a lot of cars at the end of the quarter so as not to trigger that 200,000th all-time U.S. vehicle delivered and thus trigger the tax credit phase-out. What that means, though, is that this is going to help make for a very impressive Q3 delivery number with so many cars outstanding from Q2 that will now be counted in Q3. Tesla on Q3's forecasted production, they say, quote, "We expect to produce 50,000 to 55,000 Model 3 vehicles in Q3, which will represent an increase of 75% to 92% from the prior quarter. Deliveries should outpace production in Q3 as our delivery system stabilizes." They also mention the 10,000 car per week goal, and something that I've been expecting as a strong possibility for a little while. They appear to be pushing that back. They are. They say, quote, "We aim to increase production to 10,000 Model 3s per week as fast as we can. We believe that the majority of Tesla's production lines will be ready to produce at this rate by the end of this year, but we will still have to increase capacity in certain places, and we will need our suppliers to meet this as well. As a result, we expect to hit this rate sometime next year." And on the topic of Gigafactory's growth, its output growth, quote, "At the end of July, Gigafactory 1 battery production reached an annualized run rate of roughly 20 gigawatt hours, making it the highest volume battery plant in the world by a significant margin. Consequently, Tesla currently produces more batteries in terms of kilowatt hours than all other car makers combined." Wow. That is impressive. I mean, that shows you the commitment to electric vehicles versus the not quite all the way there commitment from everybody else. On the initial test drive results of Model 3, Tesla says, quote, "Additionally, we recently started taking requests for Model 3 test drives in July and have already received more than 60,000 Model 3 test drive requests in the U.S. alone. Most stores in North America were just getting Model 3s for test drives in July. Early results indicate that the Model 3 test drive to order conversion rate is higher than for Model S, so weekly orders should grow significantly in the upcoming months. In recent weeks, orders from non-reservation holders have already become a significant portion of our total new Model 3 orders, suggesting that we have barely tapped the full potential of Model 3 demand." And finally, in their closing statement, Tesla looking ahead and looking back, saying, quote, "It took 15 years to execute on our initial goal to produce an affordable, long-range electric vehicle that can also be highly profitable. In the second half of 2018, we expect, for the first time in our history, to become both sustainably profitable and cash flow positive. None of this would be possible without the incredible efforts of our employees and the support of our customers, suppliers, and investors. We thank you for your unwavering support, and we have never been more excited on what the next few years will produce." End quote. Fantastic stuff there. It gets better. So let's get to the earnings call. I want to start, as I always like to start, with Elon Musk's opening remarks. And also, as usual, it's about 10 minutes. He chats for a little while here. So sit back. This is a 10-minute Elon Musk little mini speech on Q2 earnings.
Hi, thank you for joining. First of all, I'd like to say we're incredibly proud of the Tesla team for producing 7,000 Model 3, Model S, and Model X vehicles in the last week of June. That was an amazing effort. It's an honor to work with such a great team to produce that incredible result. It's like mind-blowing. We continue to achieve 5,000 Model 3s per week, or 7,000 combined, S, X, and 3, multiple weeks in July, showing that we're able to do this on a sustained basis, and we expect to, in the absence of a force majeure or some very, very unexpected event, be able to achieve an average of 5,000 Model 3s or above for Q3, and 2,000 Model SXs or above per week for Q3 as well. So essentially 7,000 cars a week plus on average for Q3. That's an amazing jump from only a year ago. We were producing 2,000 vehicles a week. It's really kind of a mind-blowing leap forward for a manufacturing company. Just incredible work by the team to do that. Many, many late nights, weekends, extreme amounts of effort, and lots of smart ideas. It's amazing. One of the results you're seeing is that the Model 3 market share has surpassed all competitor premium mid-size sedans combined. So Model 3 market share is now a majority, or in July was a majority of all premium sedans. That trend is, we think, likely to continue. So it's not, and we do not think it will stop there. I have Rob Morin here, who's our worldwide head of sales, to talk about some of the interesting elements that we're seeing in terms of cars that people are trading in, the sales and demand trends. It's looking really, really positive. We're also getting great feedback on Model 3 from our customers, and we're now delivering the performance dual motor and all-wheel drive versions. The Model 3 reviews are outstanding. Really couldn't ask for better reviews from some of the toughest critics in the world. And it's just the thing that we're really finding is that the more Model 3s we deliver to the field, it's actually causing viral growth of our sales. So we deliver a Model 3 to somebody, they love it, they tell all their friends, they're actually really our customers are our primary sales force. They love their car and take their friends for a drive, and that's the thing that fundamentally drives our sales. But not everyone has a friend who has a Model 3, obviously. So we need to get the cars out there for test drives. As it is right now, not even all stores in North America have Model 3s for test drives. We prioritize getting cars to customers, but we're soon going to have Model 3s available for test drives in all stores, and both the sort of performance version and the rear-wheel drive version. Because a lot of people, they will not buy a car until they test drive it, which is not unreasonable. Although on Sunday when I delivered it, we did testing out like direct delivery, which I think is definitely the future. Direct delivery from factory gate to customers' home or work or wherever they are. The guy who bought it had never actually even sat in a Model 3. I was like, wow, okay. And I said, well, how do you feel about the car now that you have it and you've driven it? It's like, I love it. It's amazing. It just seems to be really well received. At a production rate of 7,000 cars a week, we believe we can be sustainably profitable from Q3 onwards. We're going to try to raise that rate of Model 3 production steadily in the coming quarters, and try to get to the 10,000 cars a week number as soon as we can. What we found, as we've spent a lot of time debugging wide range of manufacturing issues, that the potential for our existing lines to be able to produce far more cars is much greater than expected. That by simplifying production lines, by speeding them up, by in some cases having things being done manual instead of with automatic, and in other cases having it be done automatic instead of manual, we've been able to achieve dramatic improvements to the output of the existing lines, which means that our capex going from 5,000 cars a week to 10,000 cars a week is a tiny fraction. The capex going from 5 to 10 is a tiny fraction of the capex needed to go from 0 to 5,000 Model 3s. This is, I think, very good news for capital efficiency of the company. And we've learned a tremendous amount that it's going to inform future mass market vehicles that we produce. And from an operating plan standpoint, from Q3 onwards, I really want to emphasize our goal is to be profitable and cash flow positive for every quarter going forward. Now, obviously, if there's a big recession or there's a severe force majeure event that entrusts our supply chain, that's not always possible. But we're confident that provided the economy is roughly where it is today or reasonably good, and there's not a big force majeure event, that I feel comfortable achieving a GAAP income positive and cash flow positive every quarter from here on out. I should say there may be occasional quarters where we pay back a big loan or something, where there may be, just because we paid back a big loan. But absent that, it would be cash flow positive. So once again, I'd like to thank the Tesla team for the incredible work and our customers for their support. Without the great people we have at Tesla and the customers who put their faith in us by buying our product, we would not be here today. And I've really never been more excited about the future of Tesla. We've got a super exciting set of products to bring out in the future. And sorry if I sound a little tired. I've been working like crazy in the body shop lately. But it's really going great. I'm super excited. It's like, damn, some good people. We've got a number of the executive team here. In particular, I asked the 3 key leaders of the Tesla Autopilot team to be here. So maybe I think to go from here to see if Autopilot leaders of Tesla could introduce themselves and say a bit about what you're working on, what you're excited about in the future. Sorry to put you guys on the spot and everything, but I think we're making pretty radical advances in the core software technology, in the vision neural net, and then very importantly, with the Tesla self-driving chip technology that we've been working on for 3 years is finally coming to fruition. Pete Van is going to talk a lot about that, but it's a plug-in replacement for the existing computer, and enables an order of magnitude improvement in operations per second or frames per second is the way to think about it, and we think this is really the key to Tesla full vehicle autonomy. And like I said, we're designed to be really easy to replace. I'll let Pete talk about that. So we start with Stuart, Andre, and then Pete.
So there's a lot to chew on there. First, how about that production? They sustain 7,000 total cars per week for, quote, multiple weeks in July. So we have to assume that means 2 weeks as opposed to 3. They'd have said if it was 4, so figure 2. But still, that's great. And guess what? It's likely that they'll do that for 4 weeks in August and September and onward. And remember, too, that their stated plan is to try and get to 6,000 Model 3s per week by the end of this month, because it's August already. But if they can simply sustain that 7,000 per week total, minus a couple thousand from not being at 5,000 for presumably that first 1 or 2 weeks of the quarter in July, they're gonna have a really nice quarter, as we heard in the investor letter earlier. The other big thing to take out of that, and I'm guessing, by the way, that this jumped out for you just as it jumped out for me, is that new Autopilot APU, the Autopilot 3.0 processor. I mean, remember back when Tesla hired that guy from AMD? I think it was Seller, Jim. Should have written it down. Anyway, he has since moved on, but probably because the design work, that chip was probably taped out, or at least sketched out in some capacity. So this is now happening. I mean, this in-house custom bit of silicon, and I'll tell you, if you're one of the folks who prepaid your full self-driving, the $3,000 when you ordered your car, you are going to get this processor. I don't know if they'll give it to you right when it comes out, but you're going to be entitled to one from paying for it. Now, will the rest of us who just did enhanced autopilot? I'm not sure. That remains to be seen. But I would think for sure those of you who did the full self-driving option are going to get this for free. Elon's saying that that processor is an order of magnitude of an improvement. That is super awesome. In fact, let's hear more about that. Here's Elon bringing on 3 leads from the Autopilot team: Stuart Bowers, Andre Karpathy, and Pete Bannon. Let's hear from them.
Hi, I'm Stuart.
You have to talk loud, by the way.
Oh, yeah, you'll talk extra loud. So I'm Stuart. Joined the team relatively recently. Incredibly excited to kind of see the foundation the team has built up until this point, and be building on top of that right now. So right now, a lot of the focus is on Autopilot V9, which is our sort of on-ramp to off-ramp solution that's going to automatically attempt to change lanes, understand what lane the car is in, understand the route the user wants to travel, and take that route for the user and ultimately hand back control to that user, which is kind of safe and controlled.
Integrated navigation. So you navigate from one place. You say you just. By the way, a little tip for if you're driving Model S or X or 3 is if you just tap the navigate button and just drag down, it will automatically navigate you to your home or work depending upon where you are. That's a pretty cool feature.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the focus right now. We're also kind of digging in on some new safety features. I think probably the thing that's just most exciting for me coming into the team is just seeing the foundations been built out over the last 2 years. I think Andre will talk a lot about some of the perception and vision work we've done there, including data engine. That has sort of allowed us to build on top of that very, very quickly. And I think we're also starting to see a new set of safety features that really only make sense in this world. We have this extremely high understanding of what's happening around the vehicle. So I think when I sort of think about what gets me excited when I come into work, it's one, starting to introduce real aspects of kind of not just making the commute, kind of reducing the drudgery or kind of the risk of commuting, but also really making it a little bit fun. And the second is dramatically improving safety in a way that you really can only do once you have this very nuanced understanding of the world around you through perception.
Cool.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Andre Karpathy, and I'm the Director of AI here at Tesla. In particular, I lead the vision team, which is responsible for turning the video stream that we receive from all the cameras in the vehicle into an understanding of what is around us and around the vehicle. I've worked with neural networks for about 10 years, mostly as a PhD student at Stanford and as a research scientist at OpenAI. And what I'm really excited about is really building out this infrastructure for computer vision that underlies all of the neural network training, trying to get those networks to work extremely well and make that a really good foundation on top of which we build out all the features of the autopilot, like the features associated with the V9 release that's going to come up, and that Stuart has mentioned.
Oh, hi, this is Pete Bannon. My team.
Talk loudly. Yes.
My team's leading currently the hardware 3 development. The chips are up and working, and we have drop-in replacements for S, X, and 3. All have been driven in the field. They support the current networks running today in the car at full frame rates with a lot of idle cycles to spare. So I think we're all really excited about what Andre and his team will be able to do with this hardware in the future. I think one little anecdotal story was I gave a talk to his team on Hardware 3 last month, explaining how it worked and what it was capable of. And then afterwards, one of the researchers came up to me and he was really excited. And he said, this is so exciting. 2 years ago, I came to Tesla and designed the neural network accelerator that's part of Hardware 3 and helped architect the rest of the Hardware 3 solution that will be in the car next year.
Yeah, maybe with articulating some of the details, the design principles that explain why the Tesla AI chip or AI computer essentially for the car is able to achieve an order of magnitude better processing than anything else that exists.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like 2 years ago when I joined Tesla, we did a survey of all of the solutions that were out there for running neural networks, including GPUs. We went and talked to other people at ARM that were building embedded solutions for running neural networks. And pretty much everywhere we looked, if somebody had a hammer, whether it was a CPU or a GPU or whatever, they were adding something to accelerate neural networks. But nobody was doing a bottoms-up design from scratch, which is what we elected to do. We had the benefit of having the insight into seeing what Tesla's neural networks looked like back then and having projections of what they would look like into the future. And we were able to leverage all of that knowledge and our willingness to totally commit to that style of computing to produce a design that's dramatically more efficient and has dramatically more performance than what you can buy today.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I mean, essentially, the key is to be able to run the neural net at a fundamental, at a bare metal level, so that you actually it's in the circuits. It's essentially doing the calculations in the circuits itself, and not in some sort of emulation mode, which is how a GPU or CPU would operate. So you want to do basically a massive amount of localized matrix multiplication with the memory right there. So it's a huge number of very simple complications with the memory needed to store the results of those complications right next to the circuits that are doing the matrix calculations. And the net effect is an order of magnitude improvement in the frames per second. Our current hardware, which I'm a big fan of NVIDIA, they do great stuff, but using a GPU, fundamentally, it's an emulation mode. So, and then you also get choked on the bus. So the transfer between the GPU and the CPU ends up being one of the constraints of the system. So the net effect is we're able to, with the Tesla computer, and we've been in semi-stealth mode basically for the last 2 to 3 years on this, but I think it's probably time to let the cat out of the bag, because that cat's going to come out of the bag anyway. But it's an incredible job by Pete and his team to create this one of the world's most advanced inference computer for designed specifically for autonomous operation. And there's a rough sort of figure of merit, whereas the current NVIDIA-based hardware can do 200 frames a second, this is able to do over 2,000 frames a second, and with full redundancy and failover. So it's an amazing design, and we're going to be looking to increase the size of our chip team and our investment in that as quickly as possible. I think we've got some of the best ASICs in the world, but I think we want to build on that even more. And it costs the same as our current hardware, and we anticipate that there would have to be this replacement, which is why we made it easy to switch out the computer, and that's all that needs to be done. If we take out one computer and plug in the next, that's it. All the connectors are compatible, and you get an order of magnitude more processing, and you can run all the cameras at full frame rate, full resolution with a complex neural net. So it's super kick-ass. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Thanks for making the nets, and thanks for making the software. Anyway, basically I wanted to introduce three of the key people at Tesla that are doing this. I have huge respect and admiration for you guys, and it's because of what you and your team is doing that Tesla will be successful in this arena. Thank you.
I like that tip. I did not know that. Tap the nav button and then drag down to auto route to home or work, depending where you are. It'll figure where you want to go. So that's super cool. Thank you, Elon, for that great tip. But the heart of what you just heard there is, of course, the autopilot stuff. The big question remains: will Autopilot 2 and 2.5, remember that all Model 3s have the 2.5 and recent Model S's and X's have 2.5, will all of those, the 2s and the 2.5s, be good enough for full self-driving, as Elon had repeatedly said in the past, or is 3.0 going to be required? It sounds like 3.0 is going to be required. Things change. This full self-driving level 4 is a very complicated problem. So I'm personally not going to be mad if it turns out that 2 or 2.5 isn't good enough, because really, to the customer, to us, you either prepaid your $3,000 and you're going to get whatever hardware upgrade you need, or you knew, like me, that you were going to have to pay more later when that time comes. And so paying that later will get the hardware that you need. So, like I said, you'll get what's needed regardless. It's just a question of whether it's something you already have in the car or whether you're going to need that hardware upgrade. So that's going to be a big question going forward. But I think it seems reasonable to presume for now that 3.0 processor is going to be necessary for full self-driving at some point down the way. All right, next up we get into part of the theme of this call. You'll remember that the last call was full of, shall we say, fireworks. Elon, that was him. He was saying, talking about boneheaded questions and let's go to YouTube. And he was not treated well by investors after that. And as I said at the time, rightly so. So here's how Elon starts with one of the investor questions, and then we'll talk about what's actually discussed in this as well.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for being impolite on the prior call. Honestly, I think there's really no excuse for bad manners, and I was kind of violating my own rule in that regard. That certainly I have some excuse. There are reasons for it, and that I've gotten no sleep, and I've been working sort of 110-hour, 120-hour weeks, but nonetheless, there's still no excuse. My apologies for not being polite on the prior call.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And let's see, with respect to gross margin, I'll touch on that and then hand the rest to Deepak. But certainly, when spooling up the production line, there are a tremendous amount of inefficiencies. There's a lot of hurry up and wait, where some parts of the production line move well, then one part doesn't, and you have associates waiting around with nothing to do. There are parts that we thought were right, but then it turns out we've got to they weren't right. We've got to send them back to the supplier. It's just like the whole sort of giant machine just needs to kind of lurch into a high pace, and there's a lot of lurching, which is very inefficient. So you end up having super high labor costs per car, and it just takes time to sort of spool up this giant machine. It's just like basically a production system is like a giant cybernetic collector, and then it moves as fast as the slowest part. So as we address those slow parts, and as we improve efficiency, then gross margin and so the profitability of the car just improve dramatically. That's sort of at a high level. Do you want to add to that?
Elon, you described it extremely well. So just to sort of summarize, this was a major milestone for us in Q2, that the gross margin of Model 3 turned slightly positive. And we feel really good about the path ahead. And as Elon said, it's driven predominantly by manufacturing cost efficiencies. The labor hours that we use to produce each car becomes less. The initial ramp-up costs that we have that are one-time, those inefficiencies disappear. our fixed costs that are there that gets leveraged to a higher volume. So all of that.
Actually, a thing that can also happen is that if it turns out that, say, a production part was either designed wrong or built wrong, or there's something wrong with it, then on kind of an emergency basis, we have to go with low volume tooling, which can be produced quickly. But a part produced off of low volume tooling can easily be 10 times more than a part produced off of production tooling. And so this one you could have. And sometimes it gets really nutty. If you've got to machine something out of a block, and it's either that or make a car, then the costs of using low volume parts produced with low volume tooling can be really nutty.
Yeah, and that journey just continues. As we stabilize and grow production from these levels, we achieve even more efficiencies. And Q3 also benefits with somewhat improved mix as we're going to sell more all-wheel drive and performance cars. And in the long run, as we continue to achieve those efficiencies on cost, our gross margins will continue to increase.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this trend will continue. We're trying to give you essentially all the information that at least we know of, but we're seeing roughly half of all customers choose the dual motor or all-wheel drive option, which is actually quite a good positive surprise.
Yeah, it's been heartening to see the mix in terms of what customers want. Robin can probably add more to that.
Yeah, so starting from end of June, when we opened the configurator and invited the existing reservation holders, we saw tremendous excitement and response from our customers. As Deepak just mentioned, we actually see more orders for the all-wheel drive dual motor car and performance cars combined than the rear-wheel drive cars.
Yeah, we don't want to say like this should be assumed to be a continued thing. It's just the thing we are seeing now. So yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to point out is that we are actually, since we opened the configurator to the general public in early July, we are seeing a increased demand coming from people who do not currently hold a reservation. I think that's something that we found super exciting, because these are the people who actually had no idea about Model 3, and they heard about Model 3 is available to order. Many of them requested test drives, and since early July, we have over 60,000 test drive requests in the U.S. alone. And these people come into our stores, do the test drive, and they become super excited, and they decide to order the car. So we believe that the strong demand coming from especially the non-reservation holders is going to dramatically increase as we increase our test drive population. To give you an example, 3 weeks ago, we had only 8 stores having test drive cars. To Elon's point earlier, now we have over 90 stores having test drive cars.
Okay.
It's worth mentioning just some interesting little bits of information that Robin was telling me. I'd rather just like to also commend Robin doing a great job running worldwide sales. Thanks for taking on the role, and the awesome work done in China was really some next level stuff. Robin was born and raised in Shanghai, and has been along with Tom and Grace and other members of our team in China, have been sort of instrumental in establishing the Tales of China factory, and making sure that gets done right, and have a great relationship with the government, and so it's nice work in that regard.
I'm glad to hear Elon apologize directly and publicly for his behavior on that last earnings call. I said on that week's show that I thought he was rude, and I'm glad he realized that. I mean, it rubbed me the wrong way, and I'm on Elon's side most of the time, but kudos to the analyst in question there as well, who acted professionally and continued to do his job, even though he probably was and may still not be Elon's biggest fan. But as to the rest of the comments there, though, I'd like to note how much that I love learning on these calls. I learned a lot. This is all stuff that I knew nothing about before I started following Tesla. It's been, for me, really fun to get some insight into the world of automotive manufacturing. But even more interestingly, Elon notes that half, or slightly more than half, of all customers are choosing the all-wheel drive variants of Model 3. Though he does, I think, wisely note that this is a trend that might not continue, which probably because you've got a bunch of people like me, and I know a lot of you out there, who were specifically waiting for dual motor to open up in the configurator before you placed your order. And by the way, that other executive that they call on, that's Robin Wren, the new head of worldwide sales, formerly the vice president of Asia Pacific at Tesla. And that 60,000 test drive request number, by the way, that's just in the last month. That is impressive. And the fact that they still only have test drives at 90 of the stores means there are a lot more people out there to try and get behind the wheel of the Model 3, which will in turn, of course, convert into more sales. So a lot of room to grow here. Now, the people that are buying Model 3s, what are they trading in? Tesla talking about this. This is Robin Wren speaking about the top 5 cars that are being traded in for Model 3. Check this out.
But it's really, I think it's some of the things people don't expect. Like, what are the top 5 trade-in cars for Model 3?
Yeah, this is very interesting. So we looked at what people who are buying Model 3 cars in the United States, what cars they're trading in. What we found is through this year, from January to July, the top 5 non-Tesla cars people are trading in to get into a Model 3. They are Toyota Prius, BMW 3 Series, Honda Accord, Honda Civic, and Nissan Leaf.
They're really surprising.
Yeah, they are surprising because they are not the traditional premium sedans. They are actually, many of them are the mainstream midsize sedans.
Right, and we're obviously at this point not yet selling a $35,000 car, so this is promising for the future.
What's interesting to me about what Robin said there is that I think that over time, that could actually reverse. Right now, you are getting people like me, the aspirational buyers, people coming up from so-called lower class cars. But people like me with cars like that we've been eagerly following Tesla and rooting for them and waiting to get into our Model 3s. I think over time, as word spreads, we might see that flip upside down. So more BMW, more Audi, more Mercedes owners will trade in their cars for Teslas as word gets to them from, as Elon mentioned earlier in the call, a neighbor getting a Tesla, giving them a ride. We saw it happen with the Model S. That exact thing happened. You had a lot of aspirational buyers early on. My cousin Pat's one of them. My cousin Pat's never owned a car like a Model S in his whole life, and he adores it now. As soon as he got it, he adored it. Actually, he adored it before he got it. But anyway, point being, over time, as those Model S's got into neighborhoods, the S-Class 5 and 7 Series BMW, and who am I leaving out? 7, 5 and 7, who am I leaving out? Oh, Audi, the A6, A8 folks, they all started to switch over and trade in and get Model S. I look around San Francisco, anecdotally, I think I've said this on the podcast in the past, but the Porsche Panamera, I'm not knocking the car, but it is, I don't see those anymore. Like I not literally, but it's I rarely see them. I see 20 Model S's a day practically. And so the Panamera got its lunch eaten by the S, and I think you're going to start to see that as the aspirational folks like me who've been waiting and take delivery, but as word spreads, you'll get the more upscale cars, the BMWs, the Audis, the Mercedes to trade in for Model 3 as well. Next up, we have another mea culpa from Elon to one of the analysts on the call. And then the topic at hand is the Shanghai Gigafactory, the incoming Gigafactory in China.
I would also like to apologize for being implied on the last call with you. It was not right, and I hope you accept my apologies.
Thanks.
So with respect to Gigafactory with CapEx, I think we've learned a tremendous amount with Gigafactory 1, and we're confident that we can do the Gigafactory in China for a lot less. I think it's probably closer to, this is just a guess, but probably closer to $2 billion, and this would be at a higher, and that would be sort of at the 250,000 vehicle per year rate, so I think we can be a lot more efficient with CapEx, and that would include at least battery module and pack production, body shop, paint shop, and general assembly. Might even be less than that, but that's about the right number for that. And then cell production is something we need to still figure out with respect to the Shanghai factory. JB, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I'd agree with all that. We've found a surprising number of ways to improve efficiency and speed and density as well at Gigafactory 1, and all those lessons will absolutely be shared with Gigafactory 3. The teams are already, of course, beginning to collaborate and start to figure out ways to do this more efficiently and with less CapEx than last time.
Yeah, I think we could, like, less than half. Is like would be a good estimate, and maybe a lot less than half, but not more than half would be a fair estimate for CapEx to get to that 250K level. So it's just we just learned a tremendous amount about manufacturing. It's like it's definitely burned out a lot of neurons. Man, mental scar tissue is like next level. But on the plus side, we really know a lot about volume manufacturing at this point.
I mean, there are so many specific examples, but even in just recent weeks and months, we've found some certain areas of production that have been very capital intensive that we've been able to speed up with almost no additional capex by maybe 20, even 25 or 30%.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Just by
including cell production.
Yeah, just by challenging some of the initial assumptions, the specifications, tweaking the controls and software.
But look, what really matters, what actually doesn't matter. Things you think matter, and some of it actually ends up not mattering at all.
And that's with basically zero capex. So as you start to add very tactical, strategic capex to the existing lines, that's how we can get to something close to double. Or beyond with a really, really small increment.
And a second apology. Again, I applaud this. Glad to see Elon do that. Hopefully everybody can move on professionally, and Elon has learned to be a little more respectful on the calls here with folks that are just trying to do their jobs. But this answer from Elon and JB is a really good example to me of how Tesla has completely refocused their financial priorities. They want to be now as financially efficient as they are manufacturing efficient. So they're trying, just efficiency is like the name of the game at Tesla now. I mean, clearly Elon, as he has straight up said, does not want to have to raise capital again. I don't know if that's out of pride or because he doesn't want to dilute the company, the shares. But whatever the case, I think it's a good goal. I think it's a healthy goal. And I think what it's going to do is it'll help keep him and the company laser focused. And I think that's a great thing too. So next up, here is Elon talking about GA4, General Assembly 4, aka the tent.
Obviously, one of the keys to success on the Model 3 production was the GA4 thing, which was led by Jerome. Jerome also was key in between the sort of zone 1 and 2 semi-auto lines, which were critical because we had just fundamental failure in especially in zone 2 of battery module production. Thank you, Jerome, that was like, turns out pulling some pretty incredible rabbits out of the hat. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, people like fun about tent, but by the way, our tent is amazing. And this is not like, people like say tent, people think it's like some sort of, it's like something you buy at REI or something like that, if we go camping. This is a tent that is actually commonly used as a permanent structure. It is a giant thing that is very commonly used as a permanent structure. And we just had to come up with a creative solution because GA3 was not going to be able to make the rate, and so we had to come up with some ideas, and perhaps you could tell people how that all transpired. It's interesting, to learn.
Yeah, thank you. It was a fun project actually.
Yeah.
So not only it's producing good results, but it was a lot of people contributed from different engineering groups and had a lot of fun in the process. We set out.
We had some people on the legal team building cars. It's cool. It's great. It's like it really. There's actually sort of something like viscerally satisfying about building a car.
We just wanted to create an assembly line that would be very easy and very straightforward. So it's a straight line. Very simple. Car enters at one point and is finished at the other end. Very simple access on all sides. Very simple tooling that we reused for most of, actually nearly all of it is systems and tools that we discarded from previous SNX or for Model 3.
Especially Model 3. The point is we had 2 weeks to solve this problem, which is like quasi impossible. Yeah. So we actually didn't have time to order new equipment because it would have taken too long to arrive. So we took the conveyors that we'd discarded from the GA3 line, which didn't work, or was way too complex to actually deliver parts.
And we simplified, repurposed them, make them sturdy for what was needed. And
I thought like a really cool idea was the putting them on the 1% grade. Yeah. So it's like technically the conveyors for parts delivery to GA3 were not graded to be able to move something as heavy as a car. So we made it downhill and on a 1% downward grade, put the car at the top. So then you can actually overcome the transport.
Gravity helps.
Yeah, gravity, exactly. Basically, with Newton on your side, you can accomplish a lot.
Yeah, it's pushing the car. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, and something that I'm particularly happy about is that we installed the quality team at the end of the line, and we wanted to have at least as high standards on this new line as on the other one. Because it is so simple and straightforward, they can run very quickly to any point in the line if there is any potential concern and address very quickly. There is no maze to move around or identify where something happened. And the quality of the cars that come out of this structure is at least as good. And we make all the performance cars on this particular line, and they seem to be doing quite well. So this is a very pleasant surprise, and the associate seems to be very happy and engaged in that particular area. So this may be a model of how we may want to start general assembly for future vehicles. At least start, and we can always add further automation and complexity.
And something that's like somewhat counterintuitive is that this actually has fully considered fewer labor hours per car than the GA3 system. And just to elaborate on what Jerome was saying, when we have parts delivery to GA4, the truck literally just backs up to the side of the line where there's like a door in the tent, and then that is used to unload parts from suppliers directly to where they're needed on the line. So there's no intermediate system. Whereas for GA3, they're unloaded, they're put in a warehouse, then they're repackaged from the warehouse into these totes, which so we actually had 220 people, something like that, across all shifts, whose only job it was to repackage parts from the boxes that came in suppliers to the boxes that to these totes that go into the lifters that go up into GA3. That's literally all they do is move things from one box to another box, and we don't need that at all on GA4.
All gone.
All gone, yeah. And there's a tremendous amount of so we have 24/7 robotics technicians that are constantly trying to make the machines have uptime. That's very expensive. And so when you think about like not having to maintain all these robotic systems, that's a big cost savings as well. Now we're going to gradually be adding simple automation into GA4 to make it easier to build a car, and that are sort of labor-saving devices. But it's just fundamental. It's already at an efficiency level greater than GA3, which is pretty impressive.
It's interesting. I had been told that all of the P3Ds were being made on GA4, but it's nice to hear Tesla say that publicly. So there you go. If you order a P3D, it's being made by a team who is doing nothing but building P3Ds over on GA4. It's kind of an interesting little manufacturing inside Tesla nugget there. Okay, the coast-to-coast autopilot drive. We haven't heard about that in a little while. It's been pushed back repeatedly. Well, Elon Musk, what do you have to say about it? Is it happening anytime soon?
We can do a coast-to-coast drive, especially if we pick a specific route and then write code to really make that route work. We could do a coast-to-coast route drive, but that would be kind of gaming the system. And I think it's really important for the autopilot team to be focused on fundamental safety of the existing features. So the focus is really massively on safety of existing features. Then there's an advanced dev build that can do things like recognize traffic lights and stop signs and make hard right turns and that kind of thing. But it's not at the safety level that considered okay for release. Because really you want many nines of reliability for anything that's released to end customers. So I don't want to take the team off that until we feel like we've really done everything we possibly can for the core functionality. Stuart, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing I'd say is that when Elon, to reiterate Elon's point, like, there's no question you can kind of build a demo around this stuff. The challenge right now for the team is just increasing the safety and utility of autopilot to over 250,000 cars we have today and pushing more out after that. So I think when we look kind of forward to what the next 6 to 12 months look like, it's taking those same kind of features we've been working on, probably deploying them in the form of active safety features. Like that's like a thing we can do already, is to understand, like, use this rich understanding of the environment to actually try to keep you safer, to either beep or brake. And then also, of course, like, one huge advantage that we have is we can understand what humans actually did in these vehicles and test our software to make sure that we would have made decisions that were similar, if not safer. So that's going to be a huge part of what we do over the next probably 2 quarters.
Yeah, I mean, that said, we might be able to pull off a coast-to-coast demo before the end of the year if we, but I really like right now that it's a super heads-down focus on the version 9 software release, which has got a number of really cool things in it, and we're hoping to get that out to early access program, in about 4 weeks, and then broadly in September. That's the hardcore focus right now, and that'll certainly include some significant advancements in autonomy. And then once that's out and stable, I think that could be a good time to work on the coast-to-coast drive.
Remember how I talked a few minutes ago about the name of the game at Tesla now being efficiency? Well, again, it would seem that, be it in the name of financial efficiency or maybe wanting to get autopilot over that hump that I talked about recently, where Tesla's going to need to improve it quickly enough so that it gets tougher for people, for it to be misused, and thus destroy the reputation of the whole darn thing before it has a chance to really do the world any good, that Tesla is not choosing to use any resources on a coast-to-coast drive as something of a publicity stunt. And I don't say publicity stunt in a demeaning way, by the way, but even Elon himself there says they'd have to game the system to make it happen. Nevertheless, I'd still certainly like to see a coast-to-coast demo. That would be pretty great. And you did hear Elon say near the end of that clip that there might be a coast-to-coast demo near the end of this year. So we'll see what happens. Next clip, let's talk about autopilot and the uptake on it. Elon was asked, what's the uptake on it? Will these improvements increase customer uptake on autopilot?
Yeah, I think it's extremely powerful once people are comfortable using the technology and see just how much utility it brings. I think that is a very significant potential for a margin gain in the future. But it's contingent on that functionality really making a difference. I think we will really start to see some of the breakthrough stuff in about a month or so.
So again, Elon talking up the next big step for autopilot, and what we've previously heard, both at the shareholder meeting and on this call, is that apparently it's going to be on-ramp to off-ramp autonomy, including getting you in the proper lanes. Now, I did tweet at him earlier this week to try and clarify, like, well, is that feature going to require full self-driving? His answer was sort of vague in the sense that I'm not sure if he might have misinterpreted my question, but he seemed to indicate that it will work with the enhanced autopilot suite and will not require FSD. But can't be 100% on that because his answer to my question was simply, will work with current hardware OTA update, which doesn't sort of delineate whether or not it requires full self-driving, but I would suspect if it did, he would have said so. Anyway, we might still need some clarity on that. I don't know, but okay. Few more. We've got actually several more clips yet to go from a very productive, very busy quarterly earnings call. More on that tent. Let's hear from Jerome Guillen, one of the Tesla executives who is responsible for this, as well as he runs the Semi project as well. So Jerome talking about, he was asked, is the tent permanent? And here's what Jerome had to say.
It's permanent for now.
Yeah.
So, until we come up with something different or better. Personally, I think it's a good model to start the assembly of any product.
Yeah.
Gives a lot of flexibility, and then we can build and iterate over it. Yeah.
It really has illustrated like necessity is mother of invention, and when you have to do something quickly, then you just don't have time to spend a lot of capital. So it forces you to be capital efficient.
Yeah, it's taught us a lot of lessons on how to be capital efficient in the general assembly area, and so in that sense, those lessons will carry forward, John.
Yeah, but I think still by and large we'll be aiming for steel frame buildings. To be clear, it's not like Tesla's going to just become tents everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, the tent itself might be a little bit of a distraction from actually the focus of what's happening inside and the methodology.
Yeah, the inside is exactly.
and that's a similar methodology that we kind of, reverted back to and then moved forward from in the module, where we, simplified and then, did a very, very linear, intuitive process that was a bit more manual, and then have automated and scaled that up as we understand it and get good control of it. And I think that's a lesson that we're taking to heart broadly, across other things that we're going to do in the future, and it's an efficient way to scale up.
I'm not sure if J.B. Straubel there was referring to the short sellers with his comment about the tent being a distraction from what's going on inside it, but I have to say that's how I took it. What's going on in the tent is good. Performance Model 3 production, getting the production ramp to a sustained 5,000 cars per week. But you may have noticed that the short sellers and the fudsters, who are largely one and the same, they have been trying to pitch the tent, as somehow being a sign of how terrible and doomed Tesla is. But anyway, it seems pretty clear based on the rest of the call. At one point, Elon is straight up asked if Model Y is going to be built at Gigafactory 1, and he declines to answer. That they might not need tents anymore because they're full up in Fremont, and future vehicles are going to be produced in large facilities somewhere else with plenty of indoor room in them. But speaking of Model Y, by the way, here is a quick mention of it.
Yeah, Model Y is a sort of a whole separate thing, but it's definitely one of the elements that convinced us that we can scale up quickly and at low capex in Shanghai. We would do an improved version of G8.4, and then we've also figured out how to make the paint shop a lot simpler and general assembly a lot simpler. After this call, I'm headed back out to the
Body shop.
The body shop. Making the body shop a lot simpler. Yeah, we can really simplify the body shop, man. Wow. And there's a lot that they're really easy to improve, like design for manufacturing, and changing some of the joining approaches that we use, and actually making the car lighter, cheaper, and better, and actually safer. It's really, although it's ridiculously safe already, but yeah.
Maybe one other point, just to follow up quickly. Is, I think some people have taken this as like a walk back from automation, which is not really accurate either.
Yeah, exactly.
This is basically, a more thoughtful and focused way to apply automation to the actual issues that matter most.
Yes.
And
it's well said. That's very, actually, it's really worth emphasizing JV's point here. We're saying again.
It's not an overall reduction in automation. It is a focusing of our efforts on automating the processes and the value-add processes that matter the most. And I think we got maybe a little bit distracted on this first round, automating a lot of things that added complexity that didn't necessarily speed up. And
way too fancy.
And we can we can save.
Start simple, get fancy later. Don't start fancy. Fancy's going to bite you in the ass.
But it's not as if we're like reverting to the dark ages of all manual everything. That's not at all the case.
Yeah, Gigafactory is
massively automated.
Massively automated. It's pretty crazy, and the body production is also heavily automated. Most entirely robots, and so it's a mixture of people and automation. There's so much that goes into producing a car, going from raw metal and plastic and glass to an actual finished car. And as JV was saying, the vast majority of that is highly automated.
That statement was full of lessons. Tesla continues to learn a lot very quickly about automotive manufacturing, particularly at scale. But it's good that they're learning these lessons, because if they didn't, then they would just be stuck as a boutique luxury electric automaker forever. These are difficult lessons, but ones that they've got to learn in order to get to that next level, which, as you heard in Elon's opening remarks, they are now doing. The S leads its segment, the X is right near the top in its, and the Model 3, as we heard earlier, is killing it in its segment right now. So good stuff right there. 2 more clips for you. I tried to cull them down a little more to only the most interesting stuff, but yet we're still like over an hour and a half episode right now. So let me not waste any more time. This was an extremely good question asked near the end of the call here. Is the year 2020 still going to be a year where Tesla produces 1 million total cars? Here's Elon Musk speaking to that.
I think so. Yeah. If it's not 1 million, it's going to be pretty close. I'd say if not 1 million, it's probably at least 750 or something like that in 2020. So we're aiming for 1 million in 2020, but somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million seems pretty likely.
Where do you get the capacity to do that?
There's this place called Shanghai.
Okay, Shanghai will be important for that goal. Yeah, okay. Where does the Model Y?
I think I think so. I think we can do over 500,000 vehicles. Actually, probably more like 600,000 vehicles with current Giga and Fremont. And so then if you throw 100, 200, maybe more, a couple hundred K from Shanghai, So we're probably gonna do more than 600K with that for 3 months, and gig in Nevada. That's why I think maybe it's not. I think we have a shot at 1 million, but somewhere that was 800K seems pretty likely given the current what we know today.
Well, Elon seemed to walk back his own answer by the time his answer was over, but that's okay. As part of this push for sustained profitability, it's very important for him to try and set more realistic goals. 750,000 cars in a year, 2 years from now, would still be really darn impressive. And I have every confidence that they will get to 1 million eventually. Probably not too long after that, another year or two after that if I had to guess, but yeah, so we'll look forward to that. 750K or so in 2020. It's so crazy when I think back to the early Model S days, how far they have come and continue to go. All right, I've got one last clip that is of interest from the earnings call, and it is about Elon is asked what the current biggest bottleneck issue is. And as you'll hear Elon say, he doesn't want this twisted into headlines. But if you're curious, here's what Elon has been trying to address specifically with the team now.
Right now, the biggest constraint on production, again, please do not make a federal case out of this because it's something solved like in a matter of like a week or two. Is body production. So that's why you can just generally tell like what am I personally working on? If that's going to be the bottleneck in the company, so most likely, producing Model 3 bodies. We've made huge progress in the last few weeks, and in fact, I was just told that we were able to achieve our first 24-hour period where we made over 800 Model 3 bodies, which is pretty great. Sorry. So that's so we need to make sure, okay, how do we sustain that 800 plus per day rate? And then Paint's doing great. GA's doing great.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's good.
It is funny how he specifically says he doesn't want this to be turned into a soundbite. Sorry, Elon, I am using it as a soundbite, but I'm using your full quote and I'm providing full context. But going back to what I said earlier about the fact that I'm fascinated by learning more about automotive manufacturing, even just from these little peeks that I get listening to these earnings calls and to other talks that Elon and the Tesla executive team members give, and scaling up on Model 3 has almost seemed like a giant game of whack-a-mole, hasn't it? They smash one problem down, but then two more pop up. Then they bop those, and another one rears its head somewhere else. Right now, it's body production. But the cool part, and the good news, is that as they whack these problems away, even though others are still there, the process still gets better overall, and that's why they're now sustaining 5,000 Model 3s a week, aiming towards 6,000 at the end of this month. Kudos to everyone at Tesla for doing what all of the doubters said you could not do. That is the end of the earnings call. I need a quick breather. I'll come right back and wrap things up for you right after this. Phew, another earnings call episode done. As I always say, I love doing these. These are probably my favorite episodes. They do require the most work, but I always feel super good about them at the end because I feel like there's been just a ton of information digested. It's like eating a giant meal where it's like, man, it took a while to cook that, but man, it felt so good to eat. So if you enjoy this podcast, if you get a lot out of it, you find it informative, maybe even entertaining from time to time, and you might see fit to support it, I've got a Patreon page, totally optional, but it is there if you'd like to support. The address is patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Patreon spelled Patreon. All the information you need is over there. Of course, Immaculate Reflections, that's where my car is right now. being taken care of, getting that paint protection film. If you are interested in maybe a ceramic coating so that you don't have to wax your car for the next 3+ years, maybe you want to do paint protection film on your Model 3 as well, or just a nice detailed clay bar, wash and wax, whatever it is you want to do, look them up, give them a call. You can see their work on Instagram and on Yelp at immaculate_reflections on those. So yelp.com/ and instagram.com/ or their regular website, irdetailing.com. And then, of course, Abstract Ocean. As I mention every week, I hear from a lot of folks that are using that first time 20% off discount code. That's very cool. I'm going to be actually taking them up on that myself after I get my car back. I want to get the puddle lights, and I think maybe just the interior, the better LED interior lighting kit as well. Those are the things I'm leaning towards. They've also got that tempered glass screen protector for Model 3 and some other cool cosmetic bits as well. Look them up, abstractocean.com, and that coupon code, if you are a first-time customer, RTL Podcast, that's all one word, RTL Podcast, that'll get you 20% off of your first order with Abstract Ocean. You can follow me on Twitter if you're interested in that. It's at DMC_Ryan. And again, the as I've told just you guys, the car pictures and car travelogue, basically, in the car photos of the car and the adventures of the Spirit of Adventure are going to go on my Instagram, and that is the same as my Twitter, DMC_Ryan, if you're curious about that. You can email me anytime, teslapodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's also where you can record stuff on your phone for Ride the Lightning hotline and send stuff in. I encourage you to keep that coming because I will be getting back to that next week. There's also the Ride the Lightning hotline. I gave you that info earlier as well. And then I also mentioned I have a referral code now. Now that I'm so lucky to have a car, I finally got my own referral code that I can give out. So if you are buying an any new X, or a performance Model 3, you can use my referral code, and that will get you free unlimited lifetime supercharging, which I am so grateful to have just received as well. So my referral code is Ryan73014. So if you give that to a sales advisor, or if you're ordering online, type in ts.la/Ryan73014 and into your browser, and that will load up the configurator with that code, with that free unlimited lifetime supercharging baked into it. I want to wrap up by thanking the Patreon producers. These are the kind folks who are at the producer level of support on the Patreon. I sincerely appreciate their support. So I want to say hi to Bill Royko, Rick Sinta, Brian Hope, Ketafuki, Jerry and Mary Smith, Gabriel Salays, Stefan Joris, Luke Miles, David Nondahl, Eric Randolph, David Kittle, Luke A., Ulrich Lassa, David Vakil, Rome Strack, Michael Callahan, Kenneth Martin, Harold Plug, Peter Chalet, Orion Coates, Lars Hoffman, Lee Sweet, Marcus Mayenshine, Tim Hyde, Richard Ouellette, Emotion Rentals, Jason Chalukas, Robert Miracle, Michael Lester, Matthew Parra, Logan Willis, Alexi Heft, Jonathan Wales, David Brander, George Cassiopo, Wolfgang Obergen, Pete White, DJ Harbaugh, and Paul Hussey. Thank you all so much. You can subscribe any way you want, and like I said, that just downloads the show to you automatically without you having to do anything. iTunes, Google Play, actually there's Google Podcasts now as well, and I'm told the Google Play music, the Google Play issue from a couple weeks ago, that's long since resolved, thankfully, but iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn in the car, confirmed. Thumbnail still not showing up. The album art still not showing up. I got to email them again, my goodness. But the podcast is there. If you just search either Tesla or I believe Ride the Lightning should work as well. And then Spotify. The podcast is on Spotify as well. There's also the RSS feed at teslapodcast.libsyn.com. That'll do it for me. This has been a super long show, so I won't ramble on with any weird little end-of-show anecdotes this week. But again, thank you all so much. Other than this, thank you all so much again for your just outpouring of kind words and congratulations on the car. I'm so glad. Pretty much all of you, I got a lot of great feedback on that special bonus episode that I did last week about my delivery day. I'm really happy to be able to share that with you guys in that way and just walk you through it. And I guess it's kind of cool because I can always look back. I can always listen back to that in the future and I can sort of remember and reclaim what it felt like that day to get the car. So thank you all so much for listening. I'm Ryan McCaffrey. Where's Daisy sleeping in her crate? And I will see you next week.